Tell me your name, darling.
I'm Grace Bridges. I'm a violin teacher with the Tupelo Suzuki Association. And these are my students. This is Celia Mitchell and Henry Mitchell. They're siblings.
Okay.
And they're the grandchildren of the lady doing the art exhibit. Miss Mitchell.
Play something. Play something else.
Okay.
get ready for our gallery talk. You know, as you look around this room, you see a tremendous body of work from one of our own people that we're so proud of. And I could introduce her in many ways, but she's a good friend and a good artist. Welcome, Rebecca Brown.
I'm so honored to see all of you tonight. It's just really overwhelming, and I thank you for coming. And I'm assuming maybe you would like to hear a little bit about the works that I've done. I did all of these after I retired from teaching. So I was a teacher for 30 years. Can everybody hear me? I don't have a big, strong voice. So. But I retired and decided I would like to put all of my efforts into my art because I was an art teacher. So my husband built me a studio and I got right to work. So the things that I taught in my classroom are the things that I love to do, and it's a lot of things. So I love printmaking, I love working in the pastels, and all of these I taught my students. And we did clay, of course, and my clay pieces here reflect the seed pods that I molded and sculpted in clay from the works. All of these works that I have done, you will find that I have grown most of these flowers, or I have explored along our creek bank where we have a lot of these woodland plants that you see. My grandchildren and I and my children often go exploring in the creek banks, and we find unusual plants that grow there. In my works, I like to reflect a connectedness of plants and animals, the way things live together and the way things evolve with each other. That is to say, they depend on each other. Every living being has an effect on some other living being. Even we as humans, we affect the people that we're around every day. And so do the plants and the animals, the insects, the birds, the butterflies that feed on all these plants. They depend on them, and the plants give back. So tonight I want to take just a few minutes to talk about some of the works and a little bit about maybe something interesting about them. Before I do each plant and paint it, I usually study about it. I photograph them, I study them, I read about them. It's not uncommon for me to be in my studio and just sitting in a chair for hours, just doing nothing but reading. And that is, if I decide I want to paint something or pull a print of it, I want to know about it first. And first I have to really love it too. And I have to notice a connection between our environment and that plant or that animal. So I'm inspired by the things I grow. And a lot of these, the photographs you see here are all from most all of them except for a couple, and the cookie recipe, which is not supposed to be on there. Jill said just leave it alone, it wouldn't matter. But all of these are from where I live, and you will see a lot of these things in my works. A lot of these plants are represented in my photographs and the things I grow. The reason you see the grandchildren there are because that, to me, is where it really starts. Look at that face of wonder. And when they pick a flower and they look at it like that, I mean, and you're thinking, what are they thinking? And they're thinking that there's something really special and beautiful about this. So I'm taking a quote from an artist you know very well, Vincent van Gogh. He was a very misunderstood artist, but in his letters to his brother Theo, he sent one time in 1885, he sent a photo of a bird's nest that he had meticulously drawn in sepia browns. And in that letter, of course, he wrote a quote that inspires me, and I feel like I feel the same way that Vincent van Gogh felt when he said, "It's wonderful to find something that's beautiful, to study it, to hold it fast, and then to say, I'm going to draw that. And I'm going to draw it until it's completed." And that's just the way I feel about it. When I see something that's really pretty and beautiful to me, I want to hold it fast, and then I want to draw it, and I want to work on it like he did till it's completed, until I feel good about it. So I'm going to talk about, this was my latest work. It's Gulf Fritillary on Passion Vine, which I brought some to look at. The passion vines are one of the plants that were created, and they were actually studied, and it was recorded as one of the first Christian plants. That is, it was symbolic to Christianity and Jesus Christ. And so that's why it's called the Passion. It was first recorded by an artist in Europe, a Mexican, well, he was not really an artist, he was a Mexican friar. And he recorded this, and he used this flower to teach his children about Christ. Because in doing this, they noted that these parts of the passion vine were all symbolic of Jesus Christ. The petals, they're 10, represented to him the apostles that actually stayed with Jesus and were faithful with Jesus during his crucifixion, which is 10, so you're thinking 12. Well, he left out Peter and Judas because in naming this, he felt like they were not as faithful, I guess, as they should have been. So then we have the corona, and these little frittles, these represent the crowns, the thorns on the crown. And the anthers represent the 5 wounds in Christ on the hands and in the side. And then we have these steeples. They represent the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, and the 3 nails, which you say, well, maybe there were 4 nails, but in the early days, they thought that they had crossed the feet of Jesus, so that's why they represented 3 nails. They thought that 1 nail held both feet, which later we think that we know the Roman procedures actually, we think, used 4. But that's the symbolism of the passion plant. And of course, the maypops that are round, they are the symbolic of the earth, which is the round earth for which Christ died to save the earth. So there you have this plant. It grows wild in the meadows. It's full of butterflies. They lay their eggs. And in my work, you can see the Gulf Fritillary on the passion vine plants. And they lay their eggs and come to fruition. So there's your cycle right there. The butterflies are dependent upon that plant. So when you see this plant, it's a very special plant. The next plant is the one I want to talk about is the thistle. Now, I know you've seen this growing wild in your pastures, but they're so spiky you don't want to pick them because they are deadly to the touch. And the birds, though, absolutely love them. The butterflies, they're great pollinators. So even though we don't consider them something we would pick and put in our bouquets, but the pastures, the meadows, the roadsides, when you see these, they are so important to all of the butterflies and insects, bees, every type of critter you can imagine loves the thistle. The thistle, there are aggressive kind, but I want to tell you that there is a native thistle. And the way you can tell our native thistle is turn over the leaves. If the leaves are solid white, that's native. So it won't take over your whole meadow. But the other leaves would be green on the other side, solid green. And those are aggressive, non-native thistles. There's a legend about this, and the reason I titled this Most Noble Thistle is because this is the national flower of Scotland. And there's an old legend that goes through the Scottish people from way, way back. And it states that one night the Vikings were approaching the Scots and they were at war. And so the Vikings took off their shoes because they wanted to creep silently to surprise the Scots. And in doing so, one of the Scots heard one of the Vikings yell out, "Oh!" And so that's how this flower became the national flower of Scotland, and it still is today. And James III actually put this flower on the silver coin. So it was at one time on the silver coin in Scotland because it is a reverenced flower because they feel like it had something to do with the extraordinary heroism of their Scotsmen. So that is the story of the thistle. This I did because I was picking muscadines one afternoon in my mother's vineyard, and I had a good little bucket full, and then I looked down and all the chickens had come up and they were pecking and eating all of my muscadines that I had picked out of my bucket. So this is a great illustration of one of the beautiful golden hens that was pecking out of my bucket. I'd also like to tell you about, let's see, I'll go from here. The swallowtail butterfly weed, Asclepias, it is the host flower for the monarch butterfly. And I didn't put the monarch butterfly on there though, because in my garden, so many times I see the tiger swallowtail on there, and they love them also. But this plant is a beautiful plant and a great pollinator, and it has a history also. It's sometimes called the pleurisy root because the roots of it were used to treat pleurisy, so it has a medicinal quality about it. And back in 1944, when the Japanese had surrounded some of the islands in the North Pacific, we know that Indonesia was overtaken with the Japanese. So up until then, the kapok plant had been used. It was a tree that grew in the West Indies, and the kapok plant was a very buoyant type of plant whose little fibers were used to fill the life preservers and all kind of things. But then when the war came, they couldn't get the kapok anymore because the Japanese were there. And so what happened was children were hired in the United States to collect this papa silk. And this papa silk is what comes out of the milkweed seed pod. And I've got it right here, and you can see the fluff. All right, it took 20 pounds of this to make one life preserver. Okay, 20 pounds. And the children were paid a few pennies, not very much, about 25 or 30 cents for the bags that they would fill. So children were hired, especially all over the United States. And they would turn these in, and they had machines that would take the husks and clean them And so they made life preservers for our soldiers out of these little seed pods. And I was going to take one out and show you. The wind carries the seed pods along the way, and they're very beautiful, but the fluff of it is very buoyant. So that's how the seeds are planted, by the wind. But that's such an interesting story, because don't you know how hard they must have worked to gather all those bags of those things? And one of the main slogans was, "Don't let our soldiers sink." So that it was posted everywhere. And another title that was on one of the magazines said, "A weed goes to war." So that's what they were talking about. And so before they could develop other ways, we depended on that in many ways to help our soldiers. Okay, the next one I would like to talk about is, I think I've picked out some. I want to talk about, well, I'm just going to briefly mention this, but I blew this insect up very large, but this insect is a huge grasshopper. But there was a time when my husband and I went to Bellingrath Gardens in Alabama. And we were walking along those beautiful plants, and all of a sudden I looked down on the sidewalk, and there's this grasshopper that's about this long, and he's sitting there munching all of the plants. And I snapped his photo, and I thought, how ironic. I said, I'm here enjoying the plants, and he's enjoying the plants. So this is a lubber. It's a lubber grasshopper, and they're considered to be very lazy, slow moving. They don't fly, but obviously they just eat alive. So along this same day, on the photo on the far wall, I won't walk over there, but the only portrait that I have in here is this lady. And Jackson's moving. I'm sorry, Jackson. But the lady in the portrait, she was here in the garden the same day I was. And she had her bicycle, and she was just pushing it along, and she was just enjoying that garden. I mean, you could just see she was such a quiet, she was almost in a world of her own, spiritual, you might say. So I stopped her and I asked her if I could take a photo of her. And I said, I do some painting, and I might like to paint you one day. I never asked her name, and she said, why, sure. So I did. I took her photo. And we talked about the garden and how beautiful the plants were, and how she said that how the garden made her feel. She said she loved it. It was so peaceful there when she came to those gardens. But this was after the grasshopper. I took her, and if you'll go by later and look at her up close, I did not notice this because I didn't take this with a phone. I didn't have a phone at that time. I took a picture with my camera. And when that photo was developed, I noticed her chest right here. Her chest has had open surgery. I did not notice this until I got ready to paint her and develop the photo. When we were talking, I was looking at her face. I wasn't looking at her chest. So I noticed this, and it all made a little bit of a sense that she came to this garden because she needed some consolation. She had had surgery, and so it meant a lot to me because it just reinforces the fact that plants are so pleasurable. I mean, plants often give us joy and the things they bring. So that's another full circle. It's almost like it's a time where we need to just have to reflect on things. Gardens are wonderful. We've been to quite a few, and I've found them really enjoyable. And so I try to paint them when I can. But this lady, you can even see the peacefulness in her face. When I painted her, I didn't have any trouble. I didn't know her, but the reason I didn't have any trouble is because I felt what she was feeling, okay? It's easier for me to paint people when I don't do many portraits, but when I do, if I know them well, to me it's much easier if you know them very well. This is my latest print. On the screen, sometimes if you see a marsh go by, the marsh is on the outer banks, the levee of our family pond. And the cattails used to grow there. When the levee broke, it's been several years, there were more cattails because the water would spill over and keep it real marshy. But at some point, my mom had that fixed. And so here is the red-winged blackbird. They're very plentiful. They're all around us. They have a very shrill cry. And the red-winged blackbird male is the one with the epaulet, the shoulder patch, the red shoulder patch, not the female. Sometimes the female is mistaken for a sparrow, only a little bit larger. I've got them here because they really love nesting in a marsh with cattails. And cattails are such a valuable plant for our habitats everywhere. For one thing, they stop erosion. And for another thing, they provide homes for muskrats, beaver, frog, just birds innumerously. And the birds here are nesting, and the indigenous Indians, they really honored the red-winged blackbird because they were so aggressive and they protect their territory. And they're loud. When something comes near them, they make a shrill call. That's why his mouth is open. He's guarding, he's protecting. And the Indians saw them as protectors. And so I want to tell you, though, the Chitimacha Indian legend of how the red-winged blackbird got his red patches is this. The legend goes that one day an angry native set a fire to the bulrushes and the world. He just set a fire, and it was burning. And so the blackbird, as he was then, the blackbird let out a call. He went and warned all the natives, the world is burning, the world is burning. And so the angry man said, if you don't be quiet, I'm going to kill you. And so he did not. He wasn't quiet. He kept on alarming and telling them. So the angry man picked up a shell and he threw it at the blackbird, and it cut his wing, and his wing bled. And that's the story of how the red-winged blackbird got his red epaulets. And they're just symbolic of a soldier's patches that he wears. Very courageous. Well, the last one, I guess my time is almost up, so I'm going to tell you about this one. This is Jimson Evening. And the reason I put the bats together with the Jimson weed is because I grow the Jimson weed. It's a very poisonous plant. It's poisonous. All parts of it are poisonous, deadly poisonous. And the bats come out at night, and the bats, of course, are attracted to the moths because this flower only blooms and opens at night. It closes back again during the day. There's a legend about this. In 1767, in Jamestown, it's also called the Jamestown weed. It's 1676. There was a rebellion in Jamestown. And so the British soldiers the British colony sent some of their soldiers over to America to squelch this rebellion. And it was called Bacon's Rebellion. And it was all over things about Indians and things like that. But when those colonists saw those men, they had made a salad, and they had just picked some greens all around and put these greens like you would put in your salad. And after they had eaten their salad and boiled it and eaten it, the colonists noted, and it was noted, this was written down in the present state of Virginia by Robert Beverly. You can look it up. In 1705, he wrote this, and he said that these British soldiers were in a stupor because the poison and toxins from this plant have a really hallucinogenic effect. It alters the state of mind. So it's recorded that those soldiers were acting like monkeys. They had feathers that they were throwing in the air and blowing, and some of them stripped naked. And they witnessed all of this and wrote it all down, and said that they did not come out from under this for 11 days. And it is noted and recorded that when they did come out from under this state of alternation, that they did not remember one thing. And they were absolutely lucky to be alive because the plant is so poisonous, but they were actually could have been at a near-death state. But actually, this plant is used in medicines today, and it's a very important plant because it treats certain anxieties and properties where people need mind drugs, you might say. So the reason I put these together is because my little granddaughter Leighton and I, we sit out on the front porch sometimes, and I've sat out there with my other children, my grandchildren, and we stay till about 8:30 in June. That's when it gets really good and almost dark. Then all of a sudden we just see the bats, and they just pop out of the trees. It's just like all of a sudden they're there. And they don't come out until after the birds all go away and get real quiet. Bats are so misunderstood. Bats are mammals. They are not blind. They have very good eyesight, especially at dusk. But they use their echolocation during the dark times when they're feeding. So during that time, miraculous things happen. The moths come out at night by the moonlight. You can see the sphinx moths, which I've got in one of my works with the cleomes. But that's the story of Jimson Evening. It all goes together, and because the flower blooms, the moths come out, the bats come out to get the moths. So there you have a whole life cycle where one thing is depending upon another. And that's all I'm going to tell you about my works, but I hope you've enjoyed the stories, and I hope you learn to really appreciate the life that goes with every unique thing. Everything is unique in the way that it grows, in the way that it develops the seed pods. That's all interesting to me. The way it dies, and the life that it gives to others around it. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank y'all for coming. I want y'all to know that this is a show and a sale. There's an exhibit guide back there with prices of some of the pieces that are for sale if you're interested. And I also want to tell you that Rebecca's grandchildren are providing music for us tonight. And does anyone have any questions?
Can you tell just a little bit how you do those prints?
Okay. All of these are linoleum prints. I buy just a block. I mean, it's just a flat piece of really kind of like, what linoleum looks like. It's tough. And so what I do is an original drawing. Like I said, I'm inspired. I study what I want to do. They all have meanings here, but I just don't have time to tell you all about them. But then I carve them. I have sharp carving tools, and I plan out what is going to be carved out. So what you see that's in white, it all started out with black. So I carve it and develop the spaces. Whatever you see that I paint, I go back in and hand paint. You can get them in black and white, okay? But I just enjoy hand painting them. When I finish, I hand paint each one of them. I pull each one of them. These are not produced on a commercial machine of any kind. So people really don't know that, but so then I keep the plates. Most are addition. If you see 7/12, that means 7/12 is all I did or going to do. Okay. If you see over 50, that means I'll go up to 50, and then I don't print them anymore. Some are not additioned. And then so after my plate is carved, I lay the plate down. I squirt ink out of my tube. I roll it up. Roll the ink onto the plate, have my paper ready. I lay the paper over the plate, and then it is printed either by hand or I just can roll it through. If I have a printer that I can, like it's a printing machine that I can do if I so choose to use that. But a lot of these I've just pulled just with a spoon, by rubbing the spoon on the back, or a burnisher, a Baron is a tool I use. So after then, you pull your paper back and you have the print. You let the ink dry, and then I hand paint each one. But I do carve a lot of meticulous designs in there because that's what's important to me. So I like for you to know the importance of the designs, like the cattails and the water and the nest itself. So any more questions?
I want y'all to take note that we're going to have a printmaking demonstration here. I think we said October the 9th.
Okay.
You can see her pull prints and a little bit more about her work. So you'll have a chance to see that happen. And I didn't mention Grace Bridges is also playing tonight. She's a Suzuki teacher, and so please have more refreshments and enjoy the art more. And any more questions? Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing your work with us and making us so proud.
Thank you.